Hello, my name is Ben Farrow, and I am the president of the Associated Schools of Construction, or ASC. I'm also the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and International Programs in the College of Architecture, Design, and Construction at Auburn University in Auburn, Alabama in the States. I'm really excited to be with you guys today for the Seeds International Conference 2020 to present ASC Shades of Green. It's a little bit interesting title, but as president of ASC, I would like to present my particular perspective on how sustainability is viewed currently through the lens of being the ASC president. Now, some of you may be wondering who ASC is or who it represents. We're a group of about 170 schools of construction management, mostly in North America and Europe. We've been around for about 65 years. It is a very well-established old line group within the U.S. I think if you talk to construction management educators, certainly within the U.S., and ask them which associations are really engaged in education and research and service, then ASC would be one of the first names mentioned. And I'm really proud to represent it and hope that you may find a way to engage with us in a research project or in some future endeavor. I thought I'd start and look a little bit about the history of sustainability through the lens of ASC, and again, everything in this paper is really through my perspective as president of ASC. Prior to '98 in ASC, there was some work with regard to sustainability. It was mostly isolated. A lot of people were doing stuff that really was green, but they really weren't calling it green. And it was very isolated. It was one or two faculty members, nothing real formal or structured. And then from '98 to 2007 in education, what we saw was the proliferation of a development of sustainability classes in the curriculum. I found a 2001 survey, and it looked at 3 large construction management programs in the U.S. And at the time, Colorado State had 3 courses dedicated to sustainability, Florida had 3, and Texas A&M had 2. As we moved on from 2007 to 14, we continued these individual classes. A lot of students and faculty alike looked at certification. Often in the States, that was LEED certification through the U.S. Green Building Council. And there was a real focus on how unsustainable construction practice was and really the current situation and how we needed to change. Since 2015, we've really had a shift in education where it tends to shy away from individual classes, and we tend to be teaching sustainability across the curriculum in a variety of classes. From an industry's perspective, prior to 2000 in the U.S., the Green Building Council was relatively small. Soon after 2000, we saw a growth in this system. Contractors often sort of focused on this LEED point system on getting buildings registered as certified green buildings, and they wanted to get their professionals within their organization registered as certified professionals. Perhaps with LEED. And contractors almost competed for being the most green contractor. Since 2015, especially, this has changed. Sustainability has really become to a large degree how we build in the U.S. From an owner's perspective, there's a renewed focus on operational cost and really outcomes. This idea of the occupant-aware building and what outcomes occupants experience through the life of the building has been very important. One unique thing in developing in the market now is that some contractors are finding unique competitive advantages in some areas. There's a picture here of a cross-laminated timber system, and for example, on this type of construction, it may require as many as 6 different trade professionals, and some contractors have elected to take those 6 different trades owned in-house so that they can control the schedule and really all the budget and all elements related to those 6 different trades. Here's a chart that shows the growth of LEED in square footage in the U.S. This mirrors essentially what we've said, which is that there was this initial learning period and push toward registration of buildings. Soon after the recession occurred, owners focused more on occupant outcomes. And since that time, LEED or green construction really has become how we build and not so much a focus on new registration systems. I looked at ASC Proceedings. The darker green are the total number of proceedings in each 5-year period that were published on sustainability. And the ASC Proceedings are part of the ASC International Conference. We have an international conference usually in the spring of every year. And these are the papers published in association with that conference. And so you can definitely see that we've had substantial publications on sustainable topics. I think what's interesting here is that if you look at the percentage of articles that were education focused on sustainability, that hit a peak somewhere in the 05 to 09 time period with about a third of the articles being education related. That number has tailed off now to be only about 10% of current total papers on sustainable topics. Also tried to look at the most recent years of publications within the proceedings, and I used a chart from Deakin University where they show some different categories of sustainable topics. Each lightning bolt represents a single paper. So you can see that the proceedings, at least in the last couple of years, have focused on building performance and then another key focus area of practice and policy. ASC also publishes a journal, the International Journal for Construction Education and Research. And I took a look at the last 5 years to see which were the most cited publications on sustainability. The first two really relate to building systems and building performance, energy in particular. And the last two tend to relate to education. This is, you guys have probably seen this before. This is the International Monetary Fund's website or diagram for their sustainable goals for the future. And I just found myself wondering from an ASC perspective, we had these list of building sustainable goals through LEED in early 2000. Now it's become how we do construction. I find myself wondering if these broader sustainable goals won't become how we do education and construction as we move into the next 10 or 15 years. I also looked at the accrediting bodies. I mentioned earlier that there were 7 accrediting bodies represented by ASC. CIOB perhaps has the most extensive requirement for sustainable education. I also looked at ACCE, which is perhaps maybe the dominant accrediting system within the U.S. They currently have a requirement that says understand the basic principles of sustainable construction. They are considering removing that. Primarily my sense is because sustainable construction really becomes how we do construction broadly, and we've moved away from these individual class focuses over time in construction education in the U.S. I went back and repeated the short survey of U.S.-based CM programs and how they teach sustainability that I mentioned earlier from 2001. And it was very interesting. If you remember, CSU in Florida taught 3 courses on sustainability. Texas A&M had 2. Currently, across those 3 universities, there's only a single sustainability class remaining at Florida. Everyone else has integrated it within the curriculum, or at least those 3 schools have. So in summary, I think general contractors have really transitioned from a focus on certification and being the most green contractor to really a focus on outcomes. And they're also keenly aware of specific niche markets like securing all the trades within the CLT system as a competitive advantage. And those contractors who can pursue those in select markets may be choosing to do so. From an education standpoint, we've moved from an individual class-focused model to a very integrated construction model, or an integrated education model. And from a research perspective, we've certainly moved from individual focused topics to more of a broader perspective as to how we do construction and how it's implemented in practice and the actual outcomes that users are experiencing in the field. I thank you very much for the opportunity to share ASC's Shades of Green with you today. Thank you.